Welcome back to Builders of the Broken Bazaar. I'm your host, Dr. Tabish Zaman. Now, you must have heard me here on this platform spending so much time talking about systems, economic systems, political systems, or institutional systems. But one thing which has fascinated me about system is when you look at that, they don't break on their own. And we can see the systems breaking in and around us right now. They break through people. They break through cultures, which completely excludes a certain group of people. Again, those systems are broken through organization that talk about values, but struggle to live with them, around them. And over the past decade, and this is so important to know, diversity, equity, inclusion, it has become such a familiar language. Wherever you go, boardrooms, strategy decks, annual reports. But when you look at the data, it tells you a completely different story. According to Edelman Trust Barometer, trust in institution, I'm talking about now, sits below 50% across much of the world, both developed and developing world. One of the report, it says 60% of the employees, they are disengaged at work. And nearly 1 in 3 workers globally describe their workplace as psychologically unsafe, even in organizations that publicly champion inclusion and well-being. So familiarity, this hasn't brought that transformation. And too often, DEI, it has become a compliance thing, an optics, a risk management exercise. Something to be managed rather than something that must be felt, lived, or practiced. And when pressures comes, we're talking about economic shocks, political polarization, global crisis, wars, inclusion is often the first language to be stripped away. Just look at what's happening in the US. And this matters deeply for entrepreneurship, the discipline which belongs to me, or I belong to that discipline. Because entrepreneurship is often celebrated as innovation, agility, and growth. But it is also about culture building under uncertainty. And when cultures are fragile, no amount of strategy, funding, or disruption can compensate that. And my guest today, she has spent years working inside that tension. She's a global DEI leader, advisor, consultant who has lived and worked across 6 countries and 4 continents, if I've got my numbers right, inside organizations where inclusion means very different things depending on who holds power and who is expected to adapt. But her work doesn't begin alone with frameworks. She's all about people, with identity, with belonging, and with an uncomfortable truth. Many organizations, including entrepreneurial ones, they resist. You cannot build inclusive system without confronting that power. And you cannot build sustainable culture without safety and trust. And through her work at Human Difference, she draws on the philosophy to reframe leadership, culture, and impact, not as individual performance, but as collective responsibility. So this episode is not about DEI as a checklist. It's about culture as infrastructure, the invisible system that determines whether organizations grow, fracture, or collapse under pressure. About belonging as a condition for sustainability, not a benefit. Very important here. And about what it really takes to build organization, entrepreneurial or otherwise, which don't fall apart when the values are tested. Sunaina Kohli, welcome to Builders of the Broken Bazaar.
Thank you, Tabish. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you so much for giving your time to this platform. There are so many things we need to talk about.
There are many.
Yes, there are many. But before we get into your core work, which is all about DEI, and again, if we look at it, it's becoming a profession before framework, before strategies, just the experience of moving through those spaces, and again, you have lived and worked across countries, cultures, and systems. I feel long before, at least for a lot of us in academia, how organizations adapt or how leaders talk about. So when you think back, Take us back to those years, Sunaina, and give us a few moments when you first felt the difference, because you're all about human beings, you're all about people. The difference you saw when someone says, yes, you are part of this, and actually being a part of that. How has actually that shaped your work?
So that's quite a loaded question for me, because visibly I'm ethnically ambiguous. People can't place me. I'm too light to be this. I'm not dark enough to be that. My accent, my origins, literally the embodiment of diversity is how I show up. But so that has allowed me a seat at many tables. Because people are curious. It makes people, even leaders, curious. It disarms them. Is it the ambiguity? And so I don't know that my lived experience has been as valuable as what I've observed through others. Now, when I lived in India, it was incredibly difficult. I had a very close group of friends. One of them she took me under her wing because it was an American environment and there was a lot of Black American people in this group. And I came across as the timid British. I was a lot younger in my career, timid, British, shy, too polite. Stop saying please and thank you. Come on. Literally. And one of, the girls there, now a very dear friend of mine, took me under her wing and she's like, I'm going to have to sort you out. Black Puerto Rican girl. Honestly, Monet is so dear to my heart, but observing the lived experience of how people in India behaved around me because I was fair skinned versus my friends, painful. Incredibly painful, because that started to really educate me on racism, on division, on judgment. And then we all sort of ended up somehow or another with careers and work and everything in America. And then I saw a different, equally painful, but a different kind of exclusion, double standards. You know, the utter disregard for what? The color of someone's skin. Like, my brain doesn't process the why. Why? Because to me, if you're a good person, you're a good person. That's it. So seeing this, understanding through their lived experience is when my brain started working very differently in solutioning, addressing, exposing. Doing justice to these people that didn't deserve that. And
I think it's very important here, isn't it? And I think I'm so glad you shared that example in terms of, how personal this is, in terms of, your best friend, your life in India, and again, moving on to a different country altogether, where again, a different kind of this racism reared its head. But it's so important to connect that dot, isn't it? It's so important to connect that dot as to who we are, where we come from. And again, in your case, which is what my next question was, you did not choose to stay silent, did you? Because you brought that into your work, didn't you? And you pushed back, and you really, in your own way, you changed the definition of what belonging is all about. How do you feel about that?
I can only feel good about that. Completely unapologetic for all the tables I've had to shake and the doors I've had to slam sometimes. And I think it's not just about work, right? You have to show up as this person in everything. So in my social circles, in my family, right? The alignment to humanity, showing up, honoring the values I want to live by is way more important than what people think of me. How they perceive me, like unapologetic. I can't look at the state of this world. I don't have time to perform for people and politics and privileges. We have a lot more to deal with.
True. Yeah, I agree. But then, there's something about us. Look at you and me. We are in a world, of course, like you mentioned earlier prior to our discussion, we are two brown people in this world. And we are trying to do things in our own way, in our own discipline, like you're doing wonderfully well, and in academia, I am trying to do my own teaching and research. But don't you think we should also be looking at the enablers of, let's say, just racism or some of these social issues which are enabled by a group of people who are literally silent or who literally let it pass? This is okay. It's not a big deal. How can we challenge that from our work and bring that in our day-to-day lives, which makes it easier, or at least it gives some sort of template or framework for other people to address that if we don't have the time for it?
Yeah. I think there's two words that come to mind, right? Activism and anarchy. I know some friends who are absolute anarchists, right? And I respect them, but that's not my lane. But what I see as my lane is I am an activist, but I'm grounded in humanity, tolerance, and kindness, which not too many people are granting to one another. And if we don't do that, we just end up in a bigger and bigger and bigger mess.
Yeah.
So I think, how do we challenge those who are indifferent, don't get it, aren't seeing the devastation that we see, is continue to have conversations. And it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Again, anarchy versus activism. I think having conversations that are measured, because you can't go at people who aren't talking. We are 2.5 years into a genocide. In the last few weeks before recording this, the world has just taken another turn into darkness, right? Yeah. Nothing is the same since COVID. Nothing. The friends we keep, the people we talk to, the work that we do, the food we eat, right? Because we're making more ethical decisions, where we buy our clothes. Nothing is the same. So we have people who are on this journey with us today, 2.5 years later, 60+ years later, 50 years later. I mean, I know we've seen elders who have been a part of these movements for so many years. But then you have these people who've been walking around in their fog with their head in the clouds. I'm not going to get them on board by attacking them. I'm not going to get them on board by disrespecting them.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So the only chance I've got to get them on board is the way that I speak to this is try and get them to question themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Try and get them to question the mainstream narrative, lean into more diverse, independent sources of knowledge, information, news, and question everything. Even if my siblings tell me something, I will question it. I need 4 sources to confirm it before I'm comfortable that, okay, this is the thing right now, because we are just flooded and bombarded to the point of overwhelm. And if we have been in these conversations for so many years and are overwhelmed, the people who are sitting on the fences doing nothing, we can't drag them into it.
No.
So I think appealing to people to have more critical thinking, question everything, approach with curiosity, and also have conversations. We've lost the art of conversation.
Yeah.
We're looking at our phones, we're speaking to bots, we have lost the art of conversation. And if we don't have that, everything is just a headline, the other side of the world, no matter how bad the headline or diluted the headline. If we don't have conversations, we can't humanize that headline, and we need to humanize that headline so people connect differently and start showing up better.
And I think that's such an important point, especially in these times. We're surrounded by distractions. And I think the notion of critical thinking, which is what a lot of this AI and digital transformation is taking away from us, and we need to claw back those agencies. But you know what, Sunaina, I'm very much interested in your career as well, because I'm sure that's what shaped you, who you are. And you're doing a brilliant job in terms of talking about some of these things. So let's talk a bit about, and again, career sense, not purely in terms of the achievement, but through your eyes in terms of when you felt you're not being welcomed in a way, and it can become a problem in a sense, when people have that self-awareness about themselves. how does this organization deal with me, or how do they interact with me? What do they do to me? Who am I to them? And who are others in the same space? Again, the ugly head of racism wrapped in different ways. So did you have a moment at all where you felt, yeah, this is a problem and this is just not right, or this is a bit unsettling to me, especially when power gets involved, isn't it?
I'm going to write something down so I don't forget it. I've got two parts to this answer. So the first part is, again, with race, if we go back to what I said earlier about being ethnically ambiguous, right?
Mm-mm.
Not having had experience of direct prejudice, racism, it almost equipped me with a tougher exterior. I don't see myself as the underdog in any conversation, so I won't show up like that. And I apologize if that's the wrong word, but I don't see myself as a different race to you. I don't see myself as, I'm a woman. You're a leader who's a CEO. You're a leader who's male and maybe, more advanced. I don't see these things because personally, I haven't had to deal with discrimination myself. So when I walk into a room, and thankfully I've been so blessed. I think I've told you before, I don't have a degree. I just show up. I've had multiple careers. I've done really well in the work that I do because I understand humans, right?
Yeah.
And again, not having those preconceived notions and fears of, oh, but I'm this, but I'm that. Will I fit in? How will this work? I just walk into rooms. I just walk into spaces. And especially in the Middle East, I was there for many years. And I would rock up to the CEO, have a conversation, do my work with some of the most senior leaders around the world, and just treat them as humans. And I think they don't get that enough. They get people tiptoeing around them. I didn't do that. The other thing is, again, their curiosity gets the better of them. And this is all leaders all around the world, because I rock up, they can't position where I'm from, so they don't know how to relate to me. Then my British accent, and they're like, okay, must be hugely smart. I don't know that I am, but I'm also quirky and, a little bit woo-woo here. I'll say things that are maybe, in one moment, I'll be so strategic and we'll be really deep into the work, and I'll be giving them the most targeted responses to challenge their thinking. And the next minute I'm talking feelings and emotions and empathy. And one CEO described me as, Sunaina's great, super smart, little bit tree huggy, but we can live with that. And that was literally verbatim his words. And I received that in feedback. And I took it well. I was like, great, I don't care. I'm having these conversations and they are changing hearts and minds a little bit at a time. So that's one part. I think the other part is, right now in workplaces, the worst harm to myself that I have seen and experienced is other women. And I think we should absolutely take our rose-tinted glasses off, that because someone looks like me, sounds like me, shares the same background to me, they're gonna have my back. Absolutely not. We talk a lot about the glass ceiling. Have you heard about the trap door? Because there's a lot of women out there who are ready to pull that door wide open for other women. We see it in politics, right? Where we've had black and brown politicians say the most horrendous things.
I'm glad you got to that. And there is you can see there's a pattern here, especially when you link that from the corporate world to the political world as well. It's a lazy assumption, I would say. It's a very lazy assumption. And a lot of us gets lulled into it, just because, okay, he or she is one of us, or looks like one of us, it would work.
We've all fallen for it.
Yeah, we have quite right.
Until we get burned, and then khalas, that's it. No more.
I like that word. Yeah.
Literally, but it's shocking.
Yeah.
it's literally mental gymnastics, right? Because what you're seeing and what you're hearing is not connecting. But I have been on the receiving end of, there used to be a concept of the queen bee who was, and I think this was very 90s, early 2000s, who was the woman who had made it to the top, you know, like a will of iron, heart made of steel, and got through the boys' club, put up with everything. And she was there, successful, strong. And other women would look up to her and say, this is who I want to be. This is where I want to go. But the queen bee would never leave a pathway to help women up. The answer always would be, I figured it out. You go figure it out. Not my problem. Like, you know, I've survived hellfire. Your turn now.
Yeah.
So that was queen bee. Now you have someone who will sit with you. In my experience, sat with me, coached me, one level up to me. Actually, no one was my peer, but slightly senior, coached me, guided me, helped me. And then when their own agenda was more important, threw me under the bus full of male execs, like public humiliation, the lot. How
That's a very familiar story in a way. And again, you know, I know you shared it with us. You're sharing it with us. I'm pretty sure that comes with a lot of emotions and a lot of going back to it. But it's so important to highlight it. And it's so true. It is so true.
It's so dangerous.
Yeah. It perpetuates the whole, it doesn't solve anything. It brings, it layers those problems even more.
But it goes back to what we talked about earlier in our conversations, that, you know, we live in a world where people are guarding their privilege, their comfort, their proximity to power more than their humanity. And that's a very dark place to live.
Yeah, it is. And it's a cause of a lot of things which we are seeing at the moment. But I love what you say, Sunaina. And I really mean it. I mean, some of the things, you know, you have spoken about the diversity problem. You know, you clearly say, and you say things which unsettles room. It unsettles space, which is quite right.
Good.
You know, you say that organizations, and when I say organization, I mean the structural, you know, how it is shaped and how we are used to seeing things. You clearly say these are your views as to how they don't have a diversity problem. They have a leadership and culture problem. Now, these are not claims, or, you know, these are from your own experience. Of course, these are born from the patterns you have seen repeat over and over. So tell us something. Give us an insight peek into those moments of conversation that led you to say this, and where you realize that, okay, this issue is not just limited to this room, but what happens once all this, you know, everyone aligns to this table. This is where the whole conversation goes.
It's wild, isn't it? A little bit unhinged that your DEI advisor walks in and says, we don't have a diversity problem. But it's true. If you look at the world around us, right, seen and unseen, we are a beautiful ecosystem of diversity, right? Yeah. Even you and I, you said earlier, we're two brown people. Gender aside, we are so different, but we're also similar, right? So we have diversity, even the two of us sat here speaking. So diversity exists all around us, right? Organizations have diversity within them. But what they're not doing is enabling that diversity to thrive. They are not creating environments where people feel included, safe. You talked earlier about trust being eroded in institutions, right? Trust is at like 50%. No trust. So forget about my unseen diversity. I don't trust you enough to tell you.
Yeah.
Be that neurodiversity, be that health, be that my background. Everyone is walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
We are dealing with managers who, through fault or no fault of their own, and again, since COVID, everything going wild, managers who don't get training anymore. They're promoted into roles where they have to lead people without any previous experience of leading people, without any ongoing training of leading people. They get thrown all of the policies and the jargon and the slide decks of now we're doing well-being, now we're doing mental health, now we're doing this, now we're doing people, now we're doing safety. Well, what does that mean? How do they deliver on it? They have no idea.
Yeah.
And then you're looking...
Yeah, sorry, go on. No, go on.
And then you're looking at the concept of hurt people, right? So people are walking around, and we've talked about the many sort of issues and mindsets that people are bringing to the table. But how can you build connectedness? How can you build inclusion, belonging, safety if you yourself have lost that connection to your core? Yeah. If you don't understand who you are, why you get up in the morning, what matters, what doesn't matter, find your unapologetic voice, have truths that you're willing to stand by. How the hell am I going to lead you? One person or 50 people? How?
And that is at the heart of leading an organization or leading a group of people, or leading yourself, your family, your society that way.
If you can't lead yourself, how can you lead anyone else? And as you say, at home, at work, in your communities, in your places of worship, how? Yeah. And that is where we are losing. I mean, we are seeing clearly, we feel there's a huge gap in terms of just the leadership element which we talk about. I know when we look at people like Trump or even Keir Starmer down here, there's so many things we could talk about. And for me, what really stands out is it's not what they are doing now, the impact of what they have done or what they are doing, the longer they stay in power, is going to be felt 10, 15, 20, 25 years down the line. And it'll take so many of us to undo. It is seen as an event to have someone like Trump or Keir Starmer as a prime minister. But the lack of leadership, how they lead themselves, impacts their party, their community, their loyalists out there. There are protesters out there. But like what you mentioned, it's about leading yourself. And that is such an important element in leading events like this. Or things. You've chosen two very extreme but important examples, right? They've sold themselves out, sold their souls to the devil, right? They have lost sight of who they are, what matters, who matters. Forget us, forget their country, forget their nation, their people, just self. Yeah. Right? They're making decisions through blind greed, blind necessity for power. There's
so much we can.
There's so much that's a podcast itself. I'm so frustrated by that. But all to sort of say is that they are the two prime examples of what happens when you lose yourself. And yes, we're not all leaders of nations, but we can cause as much damage in our worlds around us.
Yeah.
The reason I left corporate, so in 2023.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's 2021. My goodness. Mm-hmm. You'll understand why I'm hesitating in a minute, but I left corporate because I literally burnt out so badly that I had a stroke and a very mild heart attack, and I lost my speech and my hearing.
My gosh.
Right? So and that was through a toxic environment. Yes, there was exhaustion through having to be a frontline responder to the organization because of COVID. HR people, DEI people, we all had to be just showing up every day, pastoral care to others. There was a lot going on. So exhaustion, toxic environment, hurting people. Everyone was hurting at the time. And that was my lived reality of burnout, right? The most extreme. But it's also the reality of how one human can cause hurt to another human.
Yeah.
Right? The behaviors around me were caused by hurting people not aligned to themselves, people who had their own agendas.
And this is important. Why? Again, coming back to your own experience of what you were seeing. And I think a lot of people, if they're listening, they would relate to this as well. when you go back to the core concept of DEI or the charade of DEI, I'm sorry if I'm using that language for this term because I feel we have lost the meaning of it. From what I have read and from what I know and from what my colleagues who are an expert in DEI, when they write about, when they do their research and they write in papers on it, case studies on organizations, DEI is more seen as a conversation we need to look at in terms of policy making after something has happened. So please help me understand this from your point, Sunaina, because like I said, you have seen it, you have faced it, you have experienced it, and you have questioned it. It is more of a response than a foundation, if that is the term we may use. From your own experience, what are organizations trying to fix after that harm has completely been done? And what does it tell us about how long we have actually avoided the question around inclusion? And now it is unavoidable. We're coming to a point where it is unavoidable and touches every aspect of our life.
Let's just call a spade here. Organizations don't respect DEI, right? Because they don't have the capacity to invest emotionally, mentally. They likely have the money to invest. But
is it because the way they are structured? Is it because how their objectives are?
I think, again, if I look at the post-COVID environment, I don't think they have the capacity for their people. Whatever that is, whether it's pay, whether it's development performance, whether it's well-being, they don't have the capacity to care for their people. That's the be-all and end-all. And I think that's any sector. That's what we're seeing, right? Yeah. I was horrified when I, years ago, first walked into an organization and there was a town hall in that first week or something. And, I was really energized to be there. Everyone was wonderful. Look up at the screen. They're going through the slides. They're launching this great strategy. They've, worked with my ex-employers, PwC. They've put loads of money behind it, everything. The slides look great, animated, colorful, engaging. The information is spot on. And then the presentation ends. And I was like, where is the people pillar?
Yeah.
They didn't even incorporate a strategy for the people who will deliver on the business strategy. And honestly, even now, that blows my how.
Yeah.
And I've gone into other clients and other organizations. And I mean, I don't beat them with the DEI stick when I get in there and there's holes. The reason they've reached out to me for help is to fix it and put it right. And that's great. I am very intentional about working with the right clients, right? If I see their intention is to try and get this right rather than performative tick box, I want to work with that client. But they're forgetting their people.
Yeah. So do you think that comes first in that conversation of DEI when we are trying to put in our policy, we're trying to put a strategy in place, that people element should be the first when we talk about that pillar, as you say?
It's got to be a significant pillar. It can't be a footnote, right?
Yeah.
The business is always first because yes, the people will help uphold that strategy, but the business is first. They're in it for profit, fair enough. But forget about profit over people. They're not even considering people.
And that should alarm us all, isn't it? That should alarm us all.
Massively. It really should. And people are just surviving. When was the last time you heard someone enjoying their job, loving it, thriving, happy to be here? Of course, I want to be here for the next 5 years, whatever. It's great. We've had so much language, again, post-COVID thrown at us. Sorry for sounding like a stuck record on that, but that is the reality. We have had, burnout is the new migraine.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We have had quiet quitting. We have had, no one cares about the engagement survey or engagement scores anymore, right? Because nothing changes. Leadership just keep getting told things aren't working, and leaders are like, we can't do that right now. And part of the reason you can't do that is you don't have a people strategy to be able to incorporate the right strategic components that need to respond to your people's feedback. Right. But I think And then again, if you think about the leaders, right? They are conditioned to perform. Yeah. Because also, as badly as humans are struggling, businesses are struggling. Politically, economically, socially, everything is upside down, inside out. So when leaders show up in organizations, their priority has to be the business, and they themselves forget their people. They forget themselves, again, that alignment to self. So it's all messy chaos, which is the result of a messy, chaotic, constantly disrupted world.
Yeah. But you've got such a vast portfolio in terms of the countries you worked in, the people you worked in. And again, do you see it as a cultural issue? Do you see it, or do you see this thread across the different cultures, different environment, different group of people? Or do you see it as coming centrally from somewhere and that tries to replicate itself, in terms of best practices? Sorry?
What's that?
This issue in terms of what we're talking about, how people try to address the DEI and when growth is also mentioned and how people are forgotten in this. Do you see it as a cultural issue?
Yeah.
Or do you see it as more, because it's coming from somewhere, from the Western world or, successful environment?
I think if we look at the Western world, west of, I don't know where, so I use that term loosely. It's any sector, any industry, any size, people are hurting.
Yeah.
Right? The World Health Organization said pre-COVID that 1 in 4 people will suffer from mental health challenges, including burnout, but mental health was the conversation then. 1 in 4 globally.
Yeah.
You can't tell me it's still 1 in 4. I would challenge you to say it's 1 in 1.
Yeah. I mean,
because everyone is going through something. It doesn't matter if it's this big in their world or that big on, this big in their world or that small on the whole scheme of things. It doesn't matter. Everyone is going through something, even the silent ones, which is why they're staying silent.
Yeah. And this is being ignored quite a lot in the name of growth, isn't it? And now my discipline is also to blame for this, because entrepreneurship is all about growth, how quickly you move, how quickly you disrupt the market. But that speed, when we talk about it, it has consequences, especially for culture. And culture is big for me, culture is big for me. Why? Because look, here in the United Kingdom, we've got such a hybrid environment and very fast moving, of course. We take our inspiration from across the pond that way. But when organizations are growing so quickly, and when you have people who are leading those organizations, and they're so focused on building their businesses at all cost, you have inclusion, like you said, mental well-being, mental health. All of that just becomes a footnote. It just becomes a footnote. It becomes part of the culture, isn't it? It just becomes part of the process. And if they achieve any kind of success, you can replicate that because that's how they did it. We need to do it as well. So do you think in your own way, is there an alternative to look at this in a different way where without compromising growth, without compromising that innate desire to do well and be successful, we don't leave culture away or we don't sacrifice, group of people?
It isn't the work entirely to blame, right, for these fast-paced environments hurting people, right? We have to take ownership of our own actions and decisions and choices. You can have a fast-moving environment with a brilliant leader who doesn't harm their people. So it's not the environment, it's as much the leader. If we look at the world today, right, in a world of very aggressive alpha leadership, we have Francesca Albanese, right? We have Pedro Sanchez. We have few and far between voices that are fierce and unapologetic. You think I'm a truth teller. You've seen them, right? They are those kind of leaders, few and far between in organizations, undoubtedly so, right? So the pace of growth, the targets, the demands, we can all get there if you humanize, if you bring your people along, not drag them through.
And it requires a bit of bravery as well, isn't it?
Lots of bravery, because so it's really interesting. Last year, a lot of my work was with leaders, predominantly white men. They would work with me one-to-one privately because this isn't sitting right with me. I want to say something, I'm not sure how to say it. And so we did the work. And I love, so I have this alter ego on LinkedIn, as you know, the professional auntie. Started off as a bit of fun, but actually it's a thing and people understand it. We know what an auntie does, right? So we've been working one-to-one, and in every conversation I'm putting out a stronger leader, better human into the world who will have the ripple effect of, putting that same energy into their people and teams. This year this year's only 4th of March. I think around Christmas, maybe when you kind of assess like who you want to be this year and how you want to show up, the number of same demographic white men that I've had who've stayed silent, and now they can't look at themselves in the mirror because they know this is way out of hand. Like I may not be able to change what I want to or what needs to, but I can't do this silence anymore. I can't be muted. Yes, bills are important. I need to show up, but something needs to give. And we work on what that is and how that can happen, and they go at their own pace. But things are changing. That bravery, it's coming through, and I hope we see more and more and more of it. But to your question, how does the culture keep up with the fast-paced environments and entrepreneurship? It depends on the leader.
And to that, I would say your bravery as well, Sunaina, because you're changing things. And it has given rise to another question in my head, which I'm thinking, I want to know a bit more about that auntie thing which you've just mentioned, and which, like I said, which is wonderful in terms of, because it is impacting people across so many different genres. The way they talk about, that framing is so important. So tell us a bit, give us an inside peek of where did it come from and how have you managed to build upon it and obviously impact things on the ground?
Yeah, I think if I look at my career, this role of a matriarch, an auntie, big sister, those sort of nurturing female identities have always been there. I joke and I say very often that, DEI leaders, even before 10 a.m., they've been a therapist, a coach, a mentor, a negotiator, a fortune teller. Like, we have all these things we have to be because of diversity, right? Everyone's different. So you have to show up. You want to show up, not you have to. You want to show up and do right by people. So if you think about 20 plus years of all of these moments, and, the woo-woo tree huggy part of me is I'm very intuition driven. Very sensitive to gravitating towards, I'm trying to use not too much woo-woo language here.
But that makes you human. Sunaina.
It does. But if people don't know me, they're like, what the hell? But I gravitate towards people who need something, need help, need to be listened to, need to talk something through, figure something out. So anyway, long story short, all of that last year, sort of sitting and looking at, how my client base was changing, people who were organically coming out to me, what was happening in the world. I played with it, put it out there. It could work, it could not work. And someone actually said to me, you need to be an auntie, use that. And I did. And literally everyone got it. Because it transcends cultures, geographies, age, backgrounds, everybody. Well, let's say 80% of the world gets what an auntie does. You have two types of aunties, the very menacing ones in a negative way who have to get you married off and a very judgmental, and me who'd like to see you married but won't judge you if you're not. Right. So
we need more of the other side.
We need more of this, right? But I'm a truth teller, always have been. With kindness, but you need to hear the truth. you need to do the work. You need to take accountability and responsibility. And I think all those qualities came through. People understood it. But I think primarily having the persona of auntie gave me a license for absolute menacing, because I could say what I wanted to say. I could show up how I wanted to show up. And as you've said before about my content, take it or leave it. I don't care. Because I'm an auntie, I can get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see?
No, none of the things which you say. I think you tug the heart. If I'm, and I have done enough, I've done enough research on you to say that, because, and what you've done is you've reframed, and this is where we need to be as in the current times, the privilege we have or the opportunity we have. We need to reframe some of those things which we have learned it in a way, and how it can bring about that change. And look how you've turned a very nice, a very simple concept, and you're bringing about that change of heart and mind, like through your work, and this is serious business, this is not just about being out there on social media and talking about things, this is very, very serious. And I can see those changes happening. But there's another thing which is very close to you, which is very well associated with you. And you say that, Ubuntu, if I have pronounced that correctly. Yeah. I am because you are. This is another redefining moment in terms of the word. Again, this is, let me say that this is not a word which has closely your or mine, but, this has been around. But tell us about Ubuntu a bit. How does this shapes you, because this is so important I say this very strongly for Western organizations, because for them, when we talk about community, it is more of a value statement, mission statement, rather than a way of organizing work. So how did this term Ubuntu help you understand about leadership and responsibility that basically, fragmented those performance-driven systems, which we often miss?
Yeah. Ubuntu is, it's Zulu philosophy, as you said. I am because you are, right? It means that our humanity is intertwined. Now, when we go back to earlier, when I talked about my Black friends and their lived experience that I witnessed in India and in America, me as a human, I know those experiences of witnessing their pain, my own pain for witnessing that as well. That's a lot. I shifted from an empath to being more altruistic, right? So now it's not just I feel with you. Now it's I have a selfless concern about your welfare, your dignity, your happiness, justice.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think Ubuntu is the philosophy that just embraces that, right?
Yeah.
That shared connectedness is so important. My brain can't comprehend pain that others are going through, right? And so I think as a leader who leads people, not drags them forward, but leads them forward, is that person who is aligned, understands themselves, and literally, and I know it's a very Buddhist concept, and again, we're hugging trees here, but it's, you let go of ego. It's not about me. It's about us, and it's about you before it's about me. And that isn't a people pleaser.
Yeah.
That isn't saying, I don't matter. I matter, but I can't matter unless I know you're okay too. We all have to have that connectedness where we all rise. It's not one or the other. There's enough for everybody. And I think, we talk about high performing teams, collaboration and Ubuntu, right, will help you get there. So your leadership frameworks, great. But that theory into practice in this world today, in the 80s, go ahead, whatever you needed. But today in this world, we're in an era of where human connection, literally as hippie as it sounds, is the one thing that's going to get us through this.
Yeah.
We are not going to get through this with frameworks and processes. Come on.
And we need down on this.
Yeah.
Again, I cannot stress this enough, Sunaina, because in such a sim that I may be, whatever I may have been asked to, but this, you cannot achieve that without those shared responsibility, isn't it? That's what this is all about. And this is a great concept.
Yeah, but it's shared responsibility to each other.
Yeah.
So that each other can rise, right? So that we can all collectively grow and do well. Yeah. You can't just pick your favorites or, not address your biases, which we all have. You have to do the work. You have to be, again, self-aware, aligned to your core, understand who you are. Even if others don't, that's how we help them through it. Yeah. We bring everyone on the journey together.
And because it's a system, isn't it? It's a system where we're all connected, and I think this works brilliantly. But you know what? I want to move from, I think we've given a lot of space to the organizational side of what you do. Like I said, you're human and your work is human. So there are places where the idea of inclusion, safety, or belonging is not about, it is about survival. And I cannot name that enough. Places like Congo, places like Sudan, places like Palestine. So when you look at those contexts where I know people in Palestine, they're very talented. Again, in terms of what they do, they're very industrious. And again, it's unfortunate what they're going through right now. But for them, the bigger question is access and safety. So power is at play there. We can all say that. So what is so impossible to ignore in places like that, where you can see it's all about power? How do we get over that to make it questionable to the system, if that's the word? How do they go from there? How do they overcome that? And how can we neutralize that power in those places?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because it's not a one person power.
Yes. And I'm so glad you say that it's not a one person, which is where when you have people working on different things, I'm in academia, you work in corporate, or you work in independently, you have your own business, you write, you're a journalist, you're a storyteller. I think it's very important now that if we have that shared sense of understanding of where these people are, or what they're struggling with, what DEI means for them, or what safety means for them, it's time to come together, because this is not one person or one part of the puzzle. This takes a lot of us in this.
Right. I think when people say it's just me, what can I do? Nothing. So I won't. Hello, we are 8 billion. Even if 2/3 of us turned up, right? We are 8 billion bowing down to the 4%, 5% of evil, greed.
Yeah.
And I think people don't understand the power of what they can do.
Yeah.
Yes, you can speak up and keep that conversation going, right? You can boycott, right? Look at what boycott has done. Right. The most recent, I think, is Nestle, who has been in the news about their performance because of boycott. Stores have shut, restaurants have shut. And I know that's people out of work, and that's never great. And where I can, I try to give back in that sense too. But when we think about the 80,000 babies, when we think about the enslaved in the Congo, in Sudan, when we think about all the harm around us, and I think we talked about this before, but the people with the least in this world give the most.
Yes.
Even those people out of work will find a way to fundraise. They will find a way. They will be at every protest, and they will still find a way to donate to someone in Palestine. We can engage with our politicians, if that's your thing. There are a million different ways that we can make a difference. And my nibblings, they were in London last week, and they met the ambassador for Palestine, Hussam Zomlot.
Okay.
What a beautiful soul that man is.
Yes.
But they met him, and he said something to them. He was so joyful with them. He had meaningful conversation. They're just little, and they were all free Palestine. And he said to his sister-in-law, he looked up at her and he said, "It may not be in my lifetime, but I hope it's in their lifetime." And even now, like, that makes me very sad, emotional. Yeah. But maybe we can have it in our lifetime if more of us do something, show up, speak up, right? I mean, for everything going on in the world, the files, ice on the streets in America, Venezuela, now Iran, we should be like, the streets should be burning with rage.
Yes. Yes.
Right? If even half of the 8 billion showed up and did something, the other half would somehow come to the table. We are too quiet.
Yeah, we're too quiet. You're absolutely right. We're too quiet. And the thing you mentioned about the generation, it is a generational thing that also explains to us the size of task ahead of us. What are we facing? It will not take our generation. It will take at least a couple of generations to undo the harm which has been done in the last few years alone. I'm not even going 77 years, which is why, again, I say this, Sunaina, your work is absolutely important because some of it relies on a very honest storytelling. Not the very polished kind where what people will think, but it is the kind of work which exposes gaps between what is the reality and what is the value. And that is the kind of truth which makes institutions uncomfortable, which makes people uncomfortable. So I want my people to know, I want my audience to understand your kind of work. Why does this honest storytelling, why is it so threatening to the system? And what it does to make people unsettle in their seat and why this is important.
I think it feeds into the last question, right? Why is it important? Because there's so much at stake.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to make people are too comfortable. Way too comfortable. We are, we've changed, but generally people are spoiled as hell. Like they can't drag themselves away from a over-sugared frappuccino for the sake of humanity. It's shameful. Yeah. I will say that to my friends, not friends if they behave like that, but I will say that to people who have been in my life before and probably aren't in my life now, but I'm okay with that. But I think I'm glad I make people uncomfortable because sit with that discomfort. Clearly there's a human inside there that knows what you're doing is not right, needs to do better. So let that discomfort be an unlock for you to unlearn. We have all had to do a lot of unlearning, right? You and I, a shared heritage in India, there's colonization, there's everything that is unraveling in the world. We've had to unlearn the narratives that were programmed into us, unlearn the choices we make, because even some of my choices aren't mine. They're how I was programmed, right?
Yes.
Really sit with the discomfort and do that work. Challenge our elders, 100%. Inspire our youth, absolutely. Yeah. But that work can only be done when that discomfort is addressed.
Yeah.
And explored.
Yeah.
Learn, unlearn, relearn, keep learning. That is the mantra of this time.
Yeah. And I think that's very important. I know you've mentioned quite a few times around COVID. And the way I relate to this is learning and learning. I'll be very honest with you. My work was mostly around healthcare, digital transformation within the NHS. Early days I'm talking about. And COVID happened. And I felt COVID would give us an opportunity, at least here within the United Kingdom, to unlearn what we know about our healthcare system and give space to that kind of discussion. Not just, again, look at the budget we spend on our NHS. Every other government gives, it's in excess of 200 billion pounds. But it's not about that. It's about having those conversations that as a human being, we call things as progress. We are so digitally connected. We are on the moon. We have technologies.
Are we?
Let's not go there. But my biggest observation here is that we should have had the time to think, have we optimized our healthcare to an extent which really serves the 65 million people we have in the United Kingdom? But it has gone back. It has gone back. Today we're in 2026. And if you look at the budget, or if you look at the discussion in the parliament, or if you look at the discussion even from a corporate side who are in that sector, are they talking about healthcare in a way which should be? So I felt COVID would be a reset, but it isn't a reset. It has gone back to square one. So what are you talking about? Learning, unlearning? Yes.
So Tabish, two things, right? Optimize healthcare. We haven't optimized ourselves, right? So again, self. Nice. So the rest. But I think with COVID, COVID was humanity's opportunity to unlearn, learn, relearn, right? And people were at home baking bread, growing potatoes, writing books, whatever they were. The number of people who quit their job, mine was forced quit, but I never wanted to go back in again, right? It took me 3 years to recover, to heal. I eventually just decided it's about me. I have to do this because I also have more control over how fierce and unapologetic and how much change I can catalyze. But those people who were grounding in purpose, quitting their jobs, going to do things that aligned better to their values, how much did people talk about I'm values, I'm purpose aligned, I know my purpose, that was the post-COVID big conversation. Yeah. I'm going to go start my business. And they did, right? People who wrote books, they went off and did things. So I think that moment was the moment where the folks who are optimized are the people who are now aligned to you and I. That's our tribe. Point.
Yeah.
Right? COVID was an opportunity to optimize, to self-reflect, to course correct, recalibrate. And are you coming out the other side a better person or more greedy? Because, oh my God, I can't risk never being on a flight to Dubai again. And oh my God, I can't, right? Who are you? Yeah. And it created that influencer culture, probably was already there, but put it on steroids. And those people kind of lost themselves in this world of brands, labels, and like private jets while we're all drinking out of paper straws and having short showers. Like, come on. Yeah. But it really did. It probably widened the them and us of those people aligned more to the philosophy of Ubuntu and those people who lost their sense of self.
Yeah, and the compass.
And now we have to,
Yeah, and that's gone. And like I said, COVID-19, of course, Palestine, what we are seeing now, it's all a crisis. It's all a crisis where the values that are lived and that values which are actually performative, that comes to fore. And we are seeing that right now. It is so important as to how we look at things and how we change things as well. So let me go to my last section, Sunaina, and then we'll go to a very quick, short, quick fire round. Well, I'll ask you one simple word, but let me address this first because I want your views, having worked so much in this area. It's around the DEI, but can we look at new ways of measuring success, especially when the trust is going away? So if organization, irrespective where they are in their chart, they generally, how can they genuinely center human feeling or the community aspirations right at the heart of what they want to achieve? Do you think it's a difficult arc? Do you think it's a paradox we are harking on, or is it actually possible?
How they can center their people?
Yes, how can they center their people and how they can go with them, their aligned vision of people who they work with?
I think it's layered. I think leaders need to do the work on themselves, right? Because you can't try and fix a culture when you're like broken within, right? The leaders need to do the work. You need to fix you. Your people are those ones that optimized during COVID, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Right? Gen Z. People are hungry. They are hungry for these environments and cultures. They are yearning to work in ways that see them, in ways that value them, in ways that support them to be the best they can be. they're ready for it. There are people I know who are burning out literally. Like I don't even know how they can function, because with burnout, it's your cognitive performance, it's your soul, it's everything, physiology. Do you know how much your body aches when you are in burnout? There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. Let me tell you, burnout isn't just I feel tired. Burnout is depletion, utter depletion. Food has no taste. You are existing. Do you not think that they are yearning for someone to come along and go, this can be better and this is how we're doing it? But it can't happen until the leaders who are going to lead that transition to better are fixing themselves.
I think that's a very good point, and how it's important.
I've always said you can throw 2 million, not that anyone is or does, but you could throw £2 million at well-being strategies, right? Beyond a bowl of fruit in reception. But really, you could take them to retreats. You could bring them back and, I don't know, give them all the water bottles they were, everything. Download the app. It doesn't make a difference if I do that and I've still got to show up and this is the nonsense I have to deal with.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people would relate to that. A lot of people would relate to that. Across
an unforgiving environment with a boss who basically doesn't give a damn. I mean, seriously, why? My goodness, I wish people put as much time into activating DE&I than they do into crushing flexible working. Like, what is that nonsense? If you don't trust someone to be at home working in their pajamas, and that's okay, because that's going to be their most productive selves. If you're not going to look at the output and the performance first, but simply want to crowd control your little fiefdoms and keep people, in your view 24/7, like, why did you hire them? If you can't trust people to do the work in a way that suits them, their well-being, meets them where they are and brings the best out into them, why the hell did you hire them?
That questions the real intent and where we are going with all of this. And that's when the leaders come to fore and talk about things. It just blows your mind that way. But thank you so much, Sunaina. I mean, I wish I could just go on talking about some of the things which I have, but let me switch the gears a bit. Okay. I'm going to have some one-word question for you. Okay. Again, you can take your time, but it's just a way to look at, to get into your mindset, in terms of all the work.
That's a dangerous place, my mind. I don't think anyone needs to be in my mind. I'm being very calm and filtered, but
your experience is so much for you to share, So let me begin with this. One thing which organizations, they misunderstand about inclusion.
It starts with self.
That theme has resonated all across. Self. Thank you. A value you have refused to compromise on.
My integrity. Actually, it's 2. And I'm going to take 2 because I'm extra with everything. If you said 3, I would have wanted 4. No, integrity and fun. Because if you're not having fun doing what you're doing, you're not having it right. And I proved that with Professional Auntie. Like, someone said to me, I was running some ideas by them and I'm like, this is cheesy as hell. And they went, Sunaina, you can do cheesy. Like, you just, I don't know how, but you make cheesy work. So yeah, I think fun, because I can do Professional Auntie and turn up incredibly seriously, but then also, I'll get the chai on. Like, so I think, but integrity, I will not compromise my integrity.
I'll take both.
There we go. We'll do that. But I would say if you wanted the serious one, integrity, absolutely.
Yeah. But fun is great with integrity.
Yeah.
My next one thing which you think leaders across the sphere, they need to unlearn.
Power and privilege is overrated.
Okay. That's a good one.
If you're not using it right.
Yes.
I think privilege is not a bad thing, but if you're not using it for good, we have a problem.
Yeah. The next one, it relates more to your work. The hardest part of your day-to-day work, which you do. The most difficult part, which you think, oh gosh.
Goodness.
I told you I'll surprise you.
Okay. You said one word. I don't know if I can only answer with one word, but I can't. Again, I have to be extra. I think people who don't get it. Like people who invite me to a party or Oh, come on, do you understand how much humanity is hurting? Do you understand that I turned 50 last year, right? I didn't even have a party. I didn't even tell anyone. I didn't even celebrate. How can we when the world is like burning down? So what's the most difficult thing? People who don't get it.
Yeah. And that's a call. That's a big call for people to listen to this, and this is not about who you are, where you're coming from. Just look outside the window.
Look on your phone.
Yes.
Like, seriously, you're on that phone all day long and you're telling me you didn't know enough. Like, come on. And I'm not doing your homework for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And my last one, we'll end this on a positive note.
And I'll try make it one word.
No, this you could take, no problems. But
okay.
Like I said, fun is part of you, who you are, with integrity, of course. So what does hope mean to you right now, given the messiness, given the broken elements we are seeing?
Hope right now is that even one person watches this and starts to do the work on themselves, in their communities, in their work, at home with the family, but that even one person starts to look at themselves differently.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love the honesty, quite honestly. That was great. It's not just about the language. I don't want to get lost in that language, but some of the things you stated about leadership, about culture, about people, and how you survive given your own experiences as well. So I tell to everyone who's listening to this, don't just look at what's written out there. Look at things when look at things when it's not going your way, and how do you overcome that? Question that, with curiosity, with your critical thinking, because that's very important, because you are, or your work is expected, someone else out there who's listening or who's coping in silence, because you are part of that community. So please question that infrastructure, because that determines whether people stay, speak, or leave in that space. So up until next time, please keep questioning, keep listening, and keep building in the Broken Bazaar.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If anything we discussed made you pause and reflect, that's great. I'd love for you to follow me on LinkedIn, where my alter ego, the professional auntie, continues the conversation, speaking bold truths and honest dialogue. I also hold one-to-one space for individuals who want to become more inclusive, more human-centered leaders and individuals. If that's you, I'd love to work with you, so please get in touch.